Welcome, everyone. It's Twyla's Spiritual, brought to you by Twyla's World, and I'm Victoria Segal, here with you today again. And today I'm going to be telling you about a story time. So the story time is I was in a DV marriage with my twin flame. It's super spiritual. So I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth. And just for some context, I'm African American. My husband was they're still getting divorced, Hispanic. Just for context. Also, it was my first relationship. It was his first relationship. We took each other's virginity. So keep those things in mind. So just in case some things may not make sense, but it will make sense when you think of those reasons. Also, I'm 5 years older than my ex-husband, or like 4 to 5 years older. So it also made it difficult for that reason. And I'm from a different place. Like we're from two different places. We were both born two different places in the U.S., so it also makes it a little bit different as well. So that's the context of it. And this is one of the most important parts, is when I say twin flame, I don't mean twin flame in the context of what normal people do. What I mean is my false twin flame, because he was not my, so when people say twin flame, I say twin soul. And instead of using when people say false twin, I say twin flame, because that's the real definitions. They have the definitions wrong. But so basically this guy was my twin flame, but he's my false twin flame. I don't believe in I believe twin flames are false. I believe the only thing that is true is twin souls. Therefore, when I say twin flame, it's automatically a false individual that God never actually ordained me to be with forever, right? Okay, so that's another thing. Okay, so I'm going to explain how we met. So we met through a dating app on Upward, and then we saw each other at a park, and that's how we met. We just met up after meeting at the park. And when I first saw him online, I did feel a connection to him by looking at his picture, but I didn't know that I had a connection with him per se. I just felt something more than most of the other guys. Like, I felt different connections, but I did feel something more, and I felt like love, and like he needed my love too. But I was like, I kind of didn't care at the same time, if that makes sense. I was kind of like, okay. And but what propelled me to even go on Upward was a falling out with my real twin soul. I fell out with him because he was in another relationship, and I didn't understand why. And so I started thinking, oh, you're not my twin, and all this stuff, and I got really upset. So then I just started dating, and then I met. So I left my twin soul, who I was spiritually married to. That was the hardest part. But I didn't know I was spiritually married to him until after, or it didn't hit me until after I had decided to start dating. So it was too late for me. I was very, very, very fed up. And so I left him to go and pursue this other relationship, which was disastrous. I started pursuing all types of different connections, but this one was the one that stuck, right? It was the one that stuck. And it started off okay, a little bit. It was okay. To be honest, when I first met him, I was kind of like, I don't know. You know, I was like, I don't know, like, if I'm completely wanting to, like, be attracted with him. But I stayed because he was the only one that actually wanted me. I could tell that he, like, wanted me for whatever reason. I was like, you know what? You know, let's see what there is. And as we kept dating, then we started to figure out that we had the same traumas. We had the same, our families were similar, like super similar. And when that happened, then it, like, something that went off in my brain was like, oh, I gotta stay with this guy. Because I had such a toxic family dynamic, and I had never really had anyone to talk to about it, because the only people in my life were my family. So I couldn't talk to my family about my family because they would always defend someone in the family. So, or they would just make excuses for how, you know, maybe I'm wrong or whatever, like I need to grow up, whatever. So I couldn't even tell them how deceptive they were and how wrong they were. So I was the black sheep, and in some ways the scapegoat too, honestly. So I was like, oh, I gotta stay with this person. He was the scapegoat and sometimes the black sheep, but I was the black sheep and sometimes the scapegoat. It was like different. So you have to look up the definitions, or I'll put the definitions on the screen right now. And honestly, guys, those definitions are really used interchangeably, because most people go through those things together, because obviously if people don't agree with your moral values, you're going to assume that what you're doing is wrong, and that if something goes wrong, it's your fault because they don't agree with what you're doing in the first place. So they really go together quite frequently. So anyway, yeah, we both had that same dynamic, and he was a divine masculine. He's like some type of light worker. He wasn't a bad person necessarily, but he had some character flaws, as well as I was going through a lot, so my character flaws were coming out, you know? So anyway, after we met and all that stuff, we ended up living together very quickly, like super quickly, because I couldn't live with my family anymore. They were so toxic. Everything I said, or not everything I said, they just didn't care about my feelings, and yeah, they didn't care about my moral values. They kept making fun of them and kept trying to make me do something I didn't want to do. And yeah, so it was mainly about my moral values. They just kept disagreeing, but it wasn't about them disagreeing as much as I felt like they kept trying to, like, control me to believe in something different than I wanted to believe. And I was very biblical. I believe in things that are very, very biblical, and they're not biblical. They're more like lax, almost worldly, but not worldly, just like lax, you know, almost like lukewarm, like believing in God, talking about God, but not really walking in God the way that you know, a fire person would, a person who's on fire. So basically their works didn't really match up with their convictions, and to this day it's still a lot like that, but there's nothing I can do about that, you know. I stopped trying to fix that and just, like, care about me. But now it's to the point where even more so, they just don't want me to. Now it's like everything I fought for morally, they believe is what got me to this point, to where I am now. So now everything's my fault, right? When that's not true. There was a whole bunch of witchcraft, a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of demons and stuff that went against me. I literally dry fasted for 4 days and got attacked by demons, and I ended up in the hospital, which I was really trying to make sure I didn't go to a mental place, because I was in the street, falling on the floor and all this weird stuff. But I was doing that because I was hearing bad things and I was seeing things, and I saw Antichrist on my dad's forehead, which I never would have thought would happen, per se. Like, I just didn't expect that. So I ran out of the house, and they think I'm crazy, but like, if you see Antichrist on your dad's forehead, you would want to leave the house too. Like, especially if you believe in Christianity so much. Like, I believed in Christianity so much. Like, now I'm spiritual, and like, I'm a spiritual Christian, but I believed in Christianity to the T back then. And so I was like, how could this be, you know? And I didn't want to get somehow I guess affected by that spirit that he was having. So I immediately just started running out of the house. He couldn't even barely catch up with me in a car. Like, my adrenaline was so high, I started running down the street. He got in the car, he couldn't even catch up to me, but I just slowed down because I was running out of breath, and I had nowhere else to run, so I just stopped. But yeah, it was crazy. But you know, that's how, I mean, so me getting upset with my twin soul, then me being so spiritual to the point of seeing spirits on people, not having that power before, it shocked me and made me kind of go crazy a little bit. And then after that, I left my home and left and went with the other guy, because I felt like he had a certain amount of understanding about, you know, what I was going through more than my family did. But he ended up, and this is where I'll continue, I'm gonna go to the next part in a second, but he ended up being domestically violent. So what happened was, when we first started dating, before I moved in with him, my parents, or my dad, he is not right. He was not right. He was being very controlling. Keep in mind, I had just turned 24 years old, and this is my first boyfriend. He wanted to control every aspect of it, so I couldn't spend the night over his house. He lived with his brother. It was him and his brother. I couldn't spend the night over his house. It was kind of irritating, because like, I knew him enough to be able to know it would be okay, and I trusted him. And I even to this day, I have a certain amount of trust that I would subscribe to him, that I would put with him, because he's not a person to like that. Anyway, but they didn't trust me. They didn't trust me enough to be like, oh yeah, blah, blah. And of course, even though what's crazy is that they're lukewarm, and they don't really do anything for God physically. They do talk about God a lot, but they don't physically do anything. But if I want to spend the night over a guy's house, oh, you're having sex out of wedlock. Keep in mind, I was a virgin, so we weren't having sex. We just wanted to sleep together because we were very, very lonely. And so it was judgmental when there was no reason to be judgmental. Especially, I could go deep into the type of people. I'm not gonna, my mom, or I can go deeper into the things my dad has done, but I'm not here to bash him. I'm just here to say that he was being hypocritical by judging me for if I wanted to sleep with the guy, and I didn't even have sex with him yet. But anyway, we had sex later on. So, continuing on, at first, okay, so before we moved in together, it was kind of like peaches and roses, But there was this one moment I remember where he was being really, really weird when he dropped me off home, and he started crying. And I was like, why are you crying? And it wasn't even that long we were together. I think it was like a week. And he was like crying, like, I want you to stay home, and I want you. He didn't want to bring me home, and he was mad because he had to bring me home. He was mad I had to walk inside, and it was like, I thought it was weird. Honestly, I knew something was wrong at that moment. I prayed for him because I could tell when he went back home he was going to have like some attack, and I could just feel it. And then he told me that when he went back home that he almost ran into a truck. So, and I had prayed for him not to get run into a car or a truck. So gratefully I had that intuition. Yeah, something was not right. And I remember being so upset and feeling so upset because to me it wasn't a big deal. Like, just, I was a very obedient child mostly of my life. So I was just thinking it's not really that big of a deal. Like, we could just see each other again the next weekend. And I think it was like I don't know, was it every day or I don't know if it was every day or every weekend. I think it was every weekend he would come and pick me up so we could spend time together. So that was happening for a little while. I don't even remember how long. I think, because we met probably in March, but we started dating in April. So I guess it was a month we did that, and then it wasn't too long after that we ended up moving in together because I couldn't go and sleep with him without my dad acting crazy. So I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to move out altogether. How about that? And then I could sleep with him. So that's what I did. And because I asked him, can I just move out with you? Because neither one of them were right, by the way. He was, not being honorable to my parents and not understanding the discipline part of dating and getting to know someone, as well as my parents, or my dad, kind of both of them, were not being understanding to, I'm a human who has needs, who sometimes, I want to sleep over my boyfriend's house, which I was a diehard Christian back then, but this is my first boyfriend, and I really didn't see it. Like, it was hard for me to leave him at night. It was really hard. So I feel like that's kind of something I don't feel like is a big deal, especially at 24, if that makes sense. So they were kind of controlling, and every guy I talked to, they say that my parents are controlling. And then my boyfriend was also controlling, was also being overboard. But I still chose the boyfriend, of course. Okay, so this is part 1 of the I got married to my domestic violent twin flame. Stop by for part 2. I'll have a part 2 up soon. And maybe part 3, part 4 series. But this is part 1 of the story time. I hope you enjoyed, and this is not a fake story. This is my real life, because my real life is crazy and dramatic. But like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.